Hey everyone, Hunter R. Hennigar here, and we're going to do a quick rundown of We Ooze, You Lose. So for setup, we're just going to print off 2 sheets of paper per player, so they'll get their dungeon sheet and their rooms and scroll of renown sheet, and then all you need is 3d6. I like to make them a little thematic, ooze color, and then a marker. You're going to randomly select the first player, and that will be considered the active player to start the game. The active player will receive 3d6 dice, otherwise known as the dice pool, and all other players will be considered the passive players. And that's setup. So to begin the game, the active player will roll the 3d6 dice in an area visible to all passive players. Then the active player will choose one of the dice from the dice pool. So let's say I'm the active player and I choose 5. The dice chosen by the active player, or me in this example, is considered claimed, and only the active player may use it. The rest of the passive players are now free to select one of the 2 leftover dice. These leftover dice are not considered claimed, and therefore any number of passive players may pick the same die. Right, now let's look at using your chosen die. So each round, depending on the room and item you choose, your polyomino ooze will grow a certain number of squares. So after choosing a die in the die pool, players will refer to their rooms and scroll of renown sheet, referencing the room header of their chosen die faced. So in this case, we chose 5. Players must select an available item from the list of the 5 items in the chosen room. So in this example, I've chosen the 5 value die. I'm going to go to the matching die face room, and I'm going to pick an item. And let's say I'm going to go with the unicorn because I want a unicorn BFF. So I will cross off unicorn, and then I'm going to add to the existing polyomino in that room 4 blocks. So let's just make it 2, 3, 4. Note that you can only add as orthogonal placement, or touching at least one side of the current existing polyomino. Thematically speaking, we've tossed a unicorn into our oozewald. Okay, now that I've added to my oozewald, I'm going to make sure to go over to the scroll of renown and tick off any boxes that are related to that item, unicorn. So in this case, with the higher value items, there's only going to be 1 instance of that. So that would be under unicorn BFF. And then that portion's done. And finally, we're going to add our polyomino to the map. This being the first round and not establishing where oozewald has started, we can add our ooze almost anywhere. Note that the walls cannot be oozed over, and our 2 trap doors, which I'll explain in a minute, cannot be oozed over in the first round. So I think with our little 3x3 brick, we're going to add here 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And that's what oozing on the map looks like. So you'll notice here that I've oozed over 1, 2, 3, a grouping of 3 spell books. So whenever you ooze over a grouping, you always get 1 bonus action, which we'll talk about in more detail in a minute. But since I covered a treasure icon grouping, I'm going to immediately add 1 to my oozewald. So I think the best spot here is to just add 1 to that cultist there, which will tick me off a box here, and you'll notice I'm getting some victory points, but also I've covered a grouping of cultists. Cultists always come in groupings of 1. So now I get to add another +1 to my ooze, sort of comboing off. So there I'm just going to add it here and see if I can get up to these scrolls. So that's what a quick turn looks like. While I was doing that, the passive players would have been picking a die there and also filling out their dungeon sheet and room scroll of renown sheet. After that, you'll collect the dice, you'll pass it to the player on the left, and they'll now be the active player, and they start the rolling in, claiming, and choosing dice phase again. Now that we have some context as to what a turn looks like, let's dive a little bit deeper into the dungeon sheet and room/scroll of renown sheets. All right, let's look at the dungeon sheet. Let's start with treasure icons. So those are the treasure icons up here. Collecting treasure icons is the main driving force of the game, sort of a race, if you will. Collecting full sets of these treasures scores you victory points and will eventually trigger the end of the game. There's 5 different types of treasures: jewels, gold coins, spellbooks, scrolls, and keys. Each treasure icon will have 3 distinct groupings on the dungeon sheet, with either 1, 2, or 3 icons in those separate groupings. Once all 3 groupings of a specific treasure icon are collected or oozed, it will be considered completed. So when you complete a treasure icon set, circle the appropriate victory point value at the top left corner of the dungeon sheet. So as you can see with my spell books, I've already completed 1 grouping. So if I'm able to go here and ooze those, then I'll get to complete. Note that each treasure icon has 2 victory point numbers, a 7 and a 4. The first player to collect and complete all the groupings of a specific treasure icon will receive 7 victory points, and all players who complete that specific treasure icon in subsequent rounds will receive 4. If 2 players complete the same treasure icon grouping in the same round, they'll both score 7 points. Okay, going down the line, we'll look at bonus ooze, which you saw me take advantage of in that first round. So for each grouping of guards, cultists, and treasure icons that are fully covered, your ooze gains a bonus. When this happens, you must add a single +1 square in any legal zone onto your ooze immediately. So there's a little clarity on groupings. Groupings are defined as the same icons attached orthogonally, consisting of between 1 and 4 icons. So here, these are actually 2 separate groupings, because the guards, if you cover those 3, that will count towards a bonus ooze. Or if you just cover the 1 cultist, that counts as a bonus ooze. Now, if you're ever to cover, say, 2 of these guards and leave 1 unoozed, then you don't get that bonus until that other guard is oozed. So in that sense, you always have to fully cover or ooze groupings before you get that bonus. Next, we'll just briefly talk about walls. Walls are pretty simple. They are just an obstacle in the dungeon, and they cannot be oozed in any way, shape, or form. Next, we'll talk about guards. So guards are squishy obstacles in the dungeon. Unlike walls, they can be oozed, but you need to be careful because each grouping of guards that either is partially or fully oozed counts toward a scaling number of negative victory points. So keep that in mind when you are covering guards. Even if you covered, say I covered this 1 guard, I still have to mark off that as a negative, even though I didn't fully cover the grouping. And so in that sense, I probably want to cover the other one to get my little bonus here because I've already scored the negative victory points. And another thing to keep in mind with guards is while they are squishy and can be oozed over, unlike walls, there is a limit to the number of groupings that are allowed. So if you fill up this guard area on the dungeon sheet and check off all 6 boxes, you cannot cover any more guard groupings. Okay, next we're going to talk about the ooze cultists. We already experienced oozing over one of those earlier in my first turn. Ooze cultists, like guards, are squishy, but unlike guards, they are not obstacles. These are odd little humans that are actively looking to be one with your ooze walled, and they can be freely oozed over and are worth a scaling number of victory points at the end of the game. And obviously note that around the map, the ooze cultists will always be in a group of 1. Next, we'll quickly talk about the Hat of Disguise. So the Hat of Disguise is an item found in the 1 value die room on your room and scroll sheet. So when you cross it off as an item, it's not going to be listed on the Scroll of Renown section. So be sure to mark it off. That's the 1 edge case here. You're not marking it off here. You're going to mark it off over here. And then you'll see it says ignores 1 covered guard group. So essentially when you're tallying up your final score, the furthermost guard group box that you've ticked off is going to be the negative victory points that you score. So if you have the Hat of Disguise and say I had the negative 16 victory point box ticked because I covered that many guards, the Hat of Disguise actually lets me push that back 1. So I'll only score negative 11 victory points instead of negative 16. Okay, up next we have the all 4 corner scoring because we need to have a little fun while we're pulling a heist. So if our Oozewald can traverse the dungeon and hit all 4 corners where you see these little red boxes, then you will score 11 victory points. Pretty self-explanatory. Okay, so then we have this cleared room box. So this box is just here for ease of scoring. It's actually cleared rooms are over on the rooms and Scroll of Renown sheet. But essentially clearing a room is defined as having crossed off all 5 items in that room on your rooms and Scroll of Renown sheet. When you clear a room, mark off the box up here and then As a reminder for scoring and ease, you can also mark off a box. Say I did 5, then I would mark it off there. And the last thing we'll note on the dungeon sheet are these trapdoors. So there's 2 trapdoors on the map. Oozing over one of the trapdoor symbols on the dungeon map allows you to expand your ooze through the other trapdoor in subsequent rounds. Okay, so now we'll move on to the rooms and scroll over now sheet. So in We Ooze, You Lose, there are 6 rooms. Each room is separated by the room header that shows a distinct die face value ranging from 1 to 6. When you select a die in the rolling in, claiming, and choosing phase, you're picking with that room to interact with, which we saw here. I picked 5, took an item, added to the ooze, notched off any instances of that item on the scroll of renown, and then added to the dungeon map. Alright, so now we're going to talk a bit about the scroll of renown. So it embodies the stories told about you and your rise as a folk hero throughout the land. Each time you're going to take an item from a room, you'll notch off any instances of that item. So as you'll note here, there are many of the small value items have multiple instances on the scroll of renown. Like potions here, it says any 3 potions. So if I were to take the potion of fire breath, I would notch off the potion of fire breath on the extravagant meal, and then also one of the any 3 potions. Same with the crowns. If I were to take an elven crown, I would notch it off here at the crowns of yore, and then as you see in the new empire, any 2 non-human crowns, so that counts as 1 towards that as well. It's the same with, say, strange beans. So strange beans I have in the extravagant meal, and then also up the beanstalk. Just keep in mind that there are multiple instances because that will help when you're comboing off later on in the game. So let's talk about when you finish a set on the scroll of renown. So when you finish a set, you're going to be able to you cross off this little exclamation mark, and that's going to indicate that you have a bonus action to take. So the bonus action, there are 2 options. Generally, you're going to want to take option 1, but as the game gets late, you might want to take option 2. So option 1 is just claiming an item. So claiming an item just allows you to select one item from any room, you cross it off, and then you notch it off on the scroll of renown. When you're claiming an item, you will not add any blocks, even though, say I took the Sphere of Dominance as my claim. I will not add any blocks to my polyomino, nor will I add anything to my dungeon map. Specifically, you are just taking claiming that item and putting it on your scroll of renown. So that will help you to combo off. The other action is destroy 2 items. So when you're destroying items, you're choosing 2 items from any of the rooms. You're just crossing them off. You're not adding here to the scroll of renown. You're not adding anything to your map or to your polyominoes. You're just crossing off those items. Now that might sound weird, but it's going to help you with clearing the rooms in the late game. Okay, so now that we've gone over both the sheets, let's talk about the end game. So the end game is going to trigger when a player or players have collected and completed 3 or more sets of treasure icons. That's why I was saying these treasure icons are important earlier, because they hinge on the end game, and it is a bit of a race while you're collecting all your other bonuses. So at the end of a round, when after all players have added to their ooze on the dungeon sheet, they're going to announce if they've completed a single set of a treasure icon. Then, if a single player has completed collecting 3 or more different treasure icon sets, the game end will trigger, and players will tally their score. So say for an example, I was able to ooze over all the coins, all the spell books, and all the scrolls on the map. That would trigger the end game. Final scoring will be tallied as so. Treasure icon sets, so either 7 or 4 points depending on when you collected them. Cultists, if you finish the all 4 corners. Any cleared rooms that are worth 7 victory points each. Any scroll of renown sets that you completed. And then obviously the guards are negative. So scroll of renown, victory points will be right beside it. So if you finished, say, up the beanstalk, you'll get 6 victory points. If you finished King of the Mountains, you'll get 3, New Empire 8, and so forth. One final rule I'll note is that when you do clear a room, you won't be able to select that die face in the dice selection phase. But if you are ever forced to select that die, you can add 1 single block to your ooze on the dungeon map. Okay, and then I'll quickly talk about the solo variant. So the solo variant of the game plays essentially the same way, but the only changes are that it's not going to be a race. So if you finish 3 treasure icon sets, you can keep going. It's going to be over 12 rounds. So through those 12 rounds, you're going to see at the bottom, we have an A and a P. So in the odd rounds, you're going to be the active player, and then in the even rounds, you're going to be the passive player. That means that you're going to roll the 3 dice as if though it were a regular game. You're going to pick one for the first round, as though you're the active player. So let's say I pick 2. You're going to do all your actions, and then, unlike the other game, you're not going to reroll the dice pool. You're going to pick from the 2 passive dice. So in this case, you'll have to pick the 4 die value. After that second selection, so in the passive, you're going to reroll the dice, and then you're going to bounce back and forth, active, passive, active, passive. So after I do that, I'm going to reroll the dice pool, repeat, and you're going to do that 6 times over 12 rounds, and you're going to tally up the high score. And that's We Ooze, You Lose. I'm going to play a couple more rounds just so you get a bit more context, and then we will say goodbye. Okay, let's say that I am the passive player this time, so the active player took that 5, so I'm stuck with a 4 or a 1. So I will... What do I have so far? Unicorn. You know what? I would like that potion of transformation. But maybe I'll hold off. Let's go with the 4, and I'm going to get the Lucky Dragon's Claw because I also need that. So I'll add 5 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Mason, another nice cube. I usually don't make such beautiful looking polynominos, but here we are. And I will that off, and then I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. Okay, so now I've covered the trapdoor. So on my next turn, I will be able to, if I choose, start building out here. One thing I guess I didn't note is that the trapdoor, it is not listed here, so that should make sense, but the trapdoor does not count as an icon grouping covering, so you won't get a bonus ooze for that. Okay. Let's say I'm the active player this time. And let's go with 6. Why not? So I get to choose. I always like the dwarven crown, so let's go with that. And I'll add here. Yeah, I'm going to be going up here, so I want to inch towards that. I'm going to build out this way. Let's make it really weird. Let's just keep going. Okay, so that's going to go here, here, here. So I always like to kind of notch off my, we actually debated if we should put the little notches here, but it just looked a little bit too cumbersome, so I'll notch off that. And then I've covered a icon grouping there, so I'm gonna get my bonus, which will give me another bonus because that's an icon grouping, and oh, I want to get my 4 corners. So now I'm at 2. All right. I think the passive player probably just wants to make me, or sorry, the active player probably just wants to make me have to pick a 3, which is fine. So 3, what do I want here? I forgot to check off my Dwarven Crown. Getting ahead of myself from last round. 3, I think I'm gonna go with a Minotaur. Start building these up. It's nice to build them up so that when you combo off, you can, if you have only one item remaining on a bunch of them, you can combo. So I'll add 4. Where do I want to go with this? Should I go this way? 1, 2, 3. I could go 2 down. That'd be good. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. So if I go 1, 2, but I still need to add 2 more. Maybe I'll try to keep it not. Oh no, that was wrong. Okay, well. I wanted to keep it not too wonky anyway. If you make the shapes too wonky, I think you just start hitting guards. Okay, and that covers grouping, so I'm going to get a bonus action, which I'll take there. That's why I put that. It's always nice to put something, some of your ooze just one off, so that when you get a bonus action, you can kind of combo them off. And then I'll get another bonus action. I think I also like to do it where you sort of get past obstacles and walls. So if I put it there, then I can just ooze along without having to try to squeeze it in that one little space. Perfect. I'm happy. All right, we'll do one more and then I'll say goodbye. So I'm the active this time. What do I want to do here? I don't want to take too long. You know what? Let's just go. Yeah, let's get the troll so we can start setting up, because then I'll be 1 away from arm wrestling and 1 away from unicorn BFF, so I can start comboing them off. So we'll do the troll there. And sometimes I like to map these out to see where, because I know I want to go here. I want to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But that's existing, and then I can know where to add, because I got to add 4. And if I just, so if I go here, 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 then I know I'm going 1, 2, 3, and I need to add 1 more. Let's put it. Let's not worry about being weird shapes, because I want to expand. So there we go. That's just an easy way to not get too lost in the where exactly you're placing stuff. All right, so that's another cultist for me, yay. And then also we're doing well with our coins. And then as you notice, we covered 2 groupings, so I'm gonna get 2 actions. Where do I want to go? I think maybe this will be, there's 2 good spots. I could set it up here, so I could inch down to kind of get this, or I could inch down here to open. I think I'm gonna go down here, because then that opens up. I'm past a wall, and that opens me up to doing a big trim there. And then we're really close to starting to circle off some of these. I only need the coins there, and I'll probably get that spell. Ooh, maybe I should have inched down there to get that spell book. But it's fine. Yeah, that's a few turns, so hope you enjoy it. I'm sure Kim and myself will play maybe a full playthrough and record it so that everyone can see a full gameplay. Anyway, thanks. Bye.